Looks so cool from standing up here. Thank you all for coming. I'm well aware that I'm between you and your beers, but I really appreciate it that you stick around for just 2 more bites of JFL. I'm Susanne Pieterse. I'm a full-stack developer at Open Satisfaction in Amersfoort. And today I'm going to tell you how you can create custom metrics with Micrometer in Spring Boot. It came to my attention, by the way, that you could have a lengthy discussion about how you pronounce Micrometer. And turns out the people of the project pronounce it like that, so let's stick to it. I'm going to try at least. Okay, so why custom metrics? Well, earlier this year I was asked at work to create a microservice that would download documents from our archive system and send it over to an API of an external service. And while we were sitting at a meeting with the supplier of this external service, they asked us if we had any idea how many documents would be sent and when. And my colleague of the business had a well-educated estimate for this, so that was cool, and everybody happy. But in the train home, I thought, wouldn't it be awesome if I could observe my application and while it's running and see when the documents are sent and how many documents were sent. And I remembered that there was this talk of Josh Long at Utrecht JUG, and he said something about observability, so I knew that was possible. So I dove right into it. And I drowned. Almost. And I was saved by Marcin, and I'm going to butcher his name, so just read it. And he was going to give a presentation at DevOps Poland, and I thought, okay, he built Micrometer in Spring Boot, so I thought he's the one that hopefully can help me, and I'll learn something from his talk. So I asked, is the video available? And it was. But he said, what do you want to know? Luckily, on Mastodon, you have a big space to send a message. So I explained what I wanted to know, and he said, just use a counter. I was like, okay. Now, at least I knew where to look for, and this is what I discovered. Turns out, Spring Boot Actuator is your big friend, and you all know it probably. You just add the dependency, and you expose the endpoint, and then you get a lot of metrics of your JVM and your application, but you don't see anything that is related to your application itself, your business logic. So I wanted more. And to show you how, I created a pastry shop. I figured there are enough coffee shops, and what goes well with coffee is a pastry. So I used the pastry shop in this case. You can download it from my GitHub if you want to. And well, first you start with creating a bean for a meter registry in a configuration class. Like this, and then you have the meter registry. Then, in my pastry service, that's where the magic is going to happen, I need to inject it in, I need to inject it into the constructor. And then you have to decide which kind of a meter do you want to use. And Micrometer has many kinds of meters, but well, for easiest reference, I took a counter or a gauge. And what's a counter? Well, that's something like this, and a gauge are kinds of that. Well, Marcin already said I need a counter, so I'm going to show you how you can use this counter. Therefore, you have in my pastry service, I already said that's where the magic is going to happen. First, you have to declare them both. In this case, I wanted one that counts the amount of pastries that were ordered and the amount of orders that we get. And well, then in the constructor, already said that you have to inject it, and then you have to register the meters to the meter registry. And you give it a label, and that's the string that you put there. And that's later in my talk, that's very important. That's how you find them back in a big list of metrics that Actuator publishes for you. When you have registered your counter to the registry, you start using it, and this is the amazing method that I'm having in this service. The only thing it does is say thank you for ordering. But here I put in the counters, and the important method that a counter has is increment, and the default value is 1. And well, that's why I can use it for every time it's ordered. I use the default one, and you also can put in an integer, and with this you count the amount of pastries that were ordered. Then you start up your application, and you hit your endpoint to order some pastries, and then you can look up your metrics like this at the endpoint for metrics, and here you can see the label that you came up with yourself, and you can see here the value 28 pastries ordered. Well, that's all nice and good, but I wanted to see patterns. I wanted to see when people were ordering, and I wanted to see more than only just a value at a certain moment in time. I wanted to observe my metrics. And it's important to understand that these metrics are not persisted in Spring Boot. Every time you restart your application, it's reset to 0. But there is a cool tool called Prometheus, and it will scrape your metrics, it aggregates it, and it saves it up for you, so it becomes a data source. And this data source can be used by Grafana to visualize this data. How do you do this? Well, you add another dependency, and this dependency takes the information that Actuator has, but it publishes this in a format that Prometheus can read, and it provides it as an endpoint for Actuator. So you also have to expose the endpoint for Prometheus. This way, Prometheus is able to look at the information and scrape it at a moment in time that you provided. Then you have to connect Grafana to Prometheus. And you do this by in Grafana to say, okay, I want to add a data source, and it's Prometheus. And then you have to tell it where Prometheus is located. And in my case, I provide a Docker stack, and the container is called Prometheus, so that's why it's there. And when you've done that, you well, you don't have to, but that's the whole fun of Grafana. You create a dashboard. And you can create your first dashboard by clicking on the button, and you say, okay, I want to add a visualization. And when you've done that, you say, okay, Prometheus is my data source. And after that, you have a whole list of visualizations, and I'm sure you can talk a week about this. I don't have that time, unfortunately, so I needed a stat, so I used a stat. And then you can create, you have to look up your labels that you named yourself, like this, and then you tell Grafana where to look for which information. Well, after you did that, you can create something like this. So you can see the amount of orders for the pastries, you can see the amount of pastries that were ordered, and you can actually see it in a nice graph if you want to. And I want to show you this live. So are you ready for this? I created a video, and there it is. First, I start with showing you the Docker stack. 3 containers with Grafana, Prometheus, and my pastry shop. And I did my first order of some pastries. And what you can see here is that it took a little while between the moment I get the response back of the pastry shop that the order came in. Now you can see it too. There's a little bit of lag, and that's because Prometheus is scraping, and then Grafana is scraping it, or polling it, and well, that takes a little bit of time. But eventually it will show up. And a cool thing, that's an example what you can do with Grafana, is that in this case I put a threshold at 20. It's a small pastry shop, so with 20 we have to be careful we don't run out of pastries. And it goes up, and now we're in the red zone, so almost full up, and that's the end of the demo. This is just a small demo of what you can do with Grafana and Prometheus. Now you know how you can use it, so I suggest you do make it so. Thank you for your attention.